in the code of conduct, now is the opportunity. And if not, we will move forward with our program for tonight, our meeting. Yes? Nobody signed up? Nothing? Okay. Then officially we will call the meeting to order at about 6:46. And make a note of the exits, please, here behind us on either side of the curtains, and then the main doors, which everyone came through, and out to the left as you head out the door. We need a motion to approve the agenda, which includes 2 addendums that you have before you, one which will be managed as part of executive session. So a motion to approve as Damon, second, Joyce. Any questions or comments or any items that you want changed? Okay, all in favor? 7-0. Have some board commendations, and I will take that. Here, do I go up to the podium? What do we think with this group? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go up to the podium. Formal. And recognizing all the hard work of a couple of our board members and the amount of involvement, there is a recognition program by the New York State School Boards Association called School Board U. And it's based on points. So points is based on attendance and different types of training, and everything's done. And there's 3 different levels. So the first recognition happens at 75 points, the second one at 150. Level 3, the Board Mastery Award level, is 250 points, and so I will stop there because that's our first recognition for Marty Cardona. If you come up. For this level, Marty, the New York State School Board Association provides a certificate, a portfolio, and an event scholarship, right? Which is great. Congratulations. Thank you. 7 years now, is that right? 7 years. And then that's the 4th level is 500 points. So double level 3, right, in terms of points. And this one goes to Joyce Kostick. Joyce. So that's a lot of training, a lot of convention time. Law conferences, you've been to those, right? And president's training. How many times have you been president?
I don't know.
More than you care to remember.
Right.
So there's a plaque in here. There's also I didn't bring the pen.
Oh.
Right there. Sorry, there's a pen and then a convention scholarship, right? So that certificate is in here as well. Congrats. Thank you.
Thank you.
How many years? Got to say it out loud.
16.
16. Pretty incredible. But thank you all for the hard work and keeping on top of all the tasks and learning and everything that happens. Okay. So I'm going to go on to the report section, and I'll just make, we don't have our student advisor here, right, as part of the president's report. I don't have my computer open up, which normally has that, but just want to officially recognize it's in the agenda, and we've recognized all these groups in the auditorium. I won't list off all the names of all the students that were involved, but we had the robotics team that was recognized by Damon. Thank you. It was done well. And Odyssey of the Mind by Maureen, also excellent. And then we had all the scholar athlete teams came through, and then the high honor graduates, which was 66 students. Oh, I don't know what percentage that is. I should be able to do the math pretty quickly, but it's more than 10% of our high school graduating class, right? So that's a pretty impressive number, I think. And listening to them and the memories that they shared, I'm always impressed how many list Brotherhood Sisterhood Week. I would like to observe that more firsthand. I know my kids always talk about it, both when they're in elementary school and then when they got to high school, right on the other end. It's good to see them come full circle. But they talk about the trips and leadership and just fun things that come through. Part of the President's report, I just think most of us are probably looking for a nap here pretty soon, right? At the end of the school year, I know the teachers are and all the staff. busy time of year. I've talked to some of our administrators who have their own children and trying to attend everything that happens in their own building and going everywhere else. It's just a really busy time of year, but so many awesome things going on, so many celebrations. My wife noted even for us, there's a celebration every day this week of sorts, with one graduating naturally, but there's just so many things going on, and we've had concerts of all sorts. So much going on in the district. It's just been wonderful. That's all I have, really. Does anybody want to contribute anything else?
So I'll just say, I mean, I think we've all had an opportunity the last month or so to participate in so many celebrations and recognitions of excellence in the district, both at a child level and at a teacher and staff level as well. But it goes to what we've talked about in our workshop, and that is, how do we define excellence and achievement in the district? And it's hard, right? It's not a test score. What we've seen over the last month is achievement and success, right? We've seen CTE programs, we've seen arts and music and theater and sports and robotics. There's so many different levels or categories of success and achievement. To be able to quantify that, I think, is our challenge. I think we need to do a better job of really saying, not only are we, you know, we've heard and talked about this for years, not only are we not about standardized testing, but really start to define what we are about, right? And put together some metrics that we can actually quantifiably look at trends and really call out the achievements that we have in the district, because we've got immense success. I think I've been told we're not very good at marketing ourselves, and that's probably a valid point. But really being able to put some quantifiable, I'm not sure if we can, but being able to define it and put some metrics around it and being able to report on it, I think, is important to think about as we move forward. And I know that we'll be doing that, but I'm just amazed at what I see in the theme of the month. If you could or should have one, is really accomplishment, right? So we need to really put words to that. That's it.
And there was one group I missed, not purposefully, but didn't miss really, but saving for last, is just recognition. I know some of you attended last week, but the retirement celebration. Always bittersweet at that time, wishing them the best of luck, grateful for their hard years of, wonderful years of service. I look at the list every time and see who's retiring, and can always say that, hey, people on this list have touched my children's lives, therefore they touched my life. I'm grateful for it. Hate to see them go, and yet I'm excited and happy for them, for the service that they've given. But congratulations to them, and thank you.
I will say my own commentary of the evening, the FEA retirement, of all the ones that I've been to, and I've been to them in a couple of different districts as well, this was by far the most entertaining. Like, it was just full of laughs and happiness. It was really good.
Teacher entertainers.
So it's a lot to live up to, and we'll have to try harder next year, I guess, but it was fun.
Thanks. So, Brett, we'll turn the time over to you for the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, and thank you all members of the Board of Education. Well, I think you're right, Damon. I could spend a lot of time talking about how we're poising ourselves for management plans and putting the strategic plan in motion. I know that the board's been grappling with, clearly defining 21st century skills, so that there could be clarity and purpose around that for all school members. But the end of the year is the end of the year, and I think everyone's captured it so far. It's about celebrations, and there's been celebrations abound. I have the joy to visit all of our schools, and I've been in all of our schools the past several days, and there's been moving up days, field days, celebrations of learning, and see you laters and goodbyes. There's been opportunities for people to really share their experiences with each other, and that's pure excitement and joy to be around. And I think that our staff and our administrators really rise to that challenge to make sure our students leave on the same note that they arrive, and the celebrations are great. We're going to be at the Blue Cross Arena in a couple days, on Thursday. We are having 98% of our seniors graduating. That's pretty impressive, 98%. And I know that there'll be 495 graduates walking or eligible to walk across the stage, and proud to be a part of that moment in a culminating celebration. I would also say that the end of the year is about thank yous and making sure that, you know, we honor and recognize those who paid so many years of service. As Damon says, there was 37 retirees this past year, and 17 were with us at our retirement party, and it was great to be a part of the special moments, the special goodbyes as people move on to the next phase of their life. Their contributions and who they are as educators are definitely forever etched in who we are as a school community. Our Board of Education, I would like to say thank you for all of your commitment, and there's lots of work, lots of efforts that are not seen, you know, that really make a difference for our school community. And again, I have the joy of seeing it being played out in so many different ways throughout the year. So thank you to our Board of Education. I would like to say thank you to our staff members who are here, our professional staff and our support staff really connect with students. You are the heartbeat of our schools. You make connections. We're seeing all the celebrations. We're seeing all the activities that are occurring. That's because there's an incredible educator behind you know, what our students experience. So thank you to our administrative team. They are the heartbeat, if you will. They provide the energy in the buildings. They provide the leadership and the structure so we could be successful as an organization. Tireless efforts and passion to make sure that our students, our schools, and our families have the very best. So my hat goes out to all of my administrative colleagues. To the district office team, I appreciate your efforts to make sure that we are employing the best for our students and our administrative team so they're informed. I look forward to working, developing the strategic plan with you in the future. Budget seasons and on all the work that goes behind that is greatly appreciated. So thank you. To our students, again, inspired. We see at our board meetings all the celebrations, the interscholastic activities. They bring us so much pride. Their academic accomplishments are just the beginning for them, and they give us so much joy. Our families are our true partners. Parents are incredible partners. If you go to many of our activities, if you go to our parent nights, you see jam-packed rooms, and that's a defining attribute of who we are as a community. And this past year, we engaged with community members with our District Advisory Council. Over 107 members participated in our District Advisory Council. We had close to 3,000 people interact through surveys or perception forums, so we can get a good understanding of what their beliefs are. People are passionate about our schools, and again, thank you. We have an exciting future. We're looking forward to the next year so we can continue to develop and build the dreams, build upon the dreams of our high expectations as a school district. So with that, I'll look forward to seeing everybody Thursday at the graduation. Thank you.
Indeed, thank you. Well said. So Treasurer's and Investment Report, Matt?
Thank you and good evening. Tonight we have the Treasurer's Report for month ending April of 2018. We had a beginning balance of $54.7 million, receipts for the month of $12.2 million, disbursements at $9.1 million for an ending cash balance in the general fund of $57.8 million. You'll notice here we've talked about interest over time, that you see the investments maturing in April, a good portion of them, so a large, over $200,000 in interest there. And then our state aid we talked about last meeting in terms of the timing of that coming in April. Of the $57.8 million, there's funds invested in money markets, as well as $25 million in a combination of treasury bills and the insured cash sweep account, which is about 44%. Here's what we see at year end, with the money being a little more liquid to finish out the year and then invested in the following school year. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to approval of the consent calendar. Multiple items in there of our past meetings and acceptance of the treasurer's report, which in year-end fund balance analysis, curricular field trips for next school year. Thank you for getting that in there. Acceptance of bid recommendations and donations. Don't think missed anything, so a motion to approve the consent calendar. Judy, second. Kevin, all in favor? 7-0. Personnel actions, which includes one of the addendums that we have instructional staff actions, creation of a part-time special education position, part-time appointments, STAR summer program staff. So when I was looking through this, I guess it's not time for comment, but it just reminds us that, you know, it never really does end, right? All these appointments for summer school, elementary summer school program, which is a long list. Substitute teacher appointments, alternative education administrator, alternative education summer tutors, and alternative education summer academic advisors, all the alternative education, extension of a parenthood leave of absence, and resignation of a substitute. But the addendum includes an instructional appointment, so our assistant principal at Northside Elementary, which will bring that up to full capacity, which is exciting. So all those are included in this area. Is there a motion to approve that? Joyce, second. Maureen, any questions or comments in this section?
I do have one question. I understand that the law is in the process of changing, that administrators may be going back to only needing 3 years for probation. Is that happened yet? And if so, how would it impact current appointees?
So I had heard there was some advocacy in that regard, but I've not actually seen any formal action taken by the Board of Regents to make any changes to that. So to the best of my
I
knowledge.
thought it was at the governor's office. Who knows what happens there?
There's been conversation over about the past 3 to 4 years about it, but there's not been any formal action taken. So at this point in time, the probationary window is still 4 years. And remember, administrators can't have the year off even if they were previously tenured in that particular tenure area.
Okay, I just wondered if we'd had any updates on that and how it would impact us.
I'm happy to check in, though, to see if there's anything more current than what I've shared tonight.
I'm sure you're right. Okay.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All in favor? 7-0. 6. I'm sorry, I knew that. 6-0, 1 abstention. Did you write it down correctly? Thank you for abstaining and reminding, Marty. I should have looked around better. And congratulations to Jeremy on our new assistant principal, so that's great. Okay. Part B, athletics, our fall coaches, and this is where I think, yes, summer's already over, right? Before we even get started. Coach resignations, and a volunteer coach. So motion to approve that. Kevin, second. Damon, questions, comments? All in favor? Okay, 7-0. Non-instructional and civil service staff actions, new appointments, additional positions listed, transfer, paraprofessional staff, and clerical staff related services for the district summer program, a list of resignations, very lengthy list. These are all our student helpers, right, which we do every year, and a termination. So motion to approve this. Marty, seconded by Judy. Discussion or action item, or discussion, not action items. Questions?
I'd just like to thank the staff at Fairport High School. They worked very hard to get this to us. You see a lot of student helpers, and normally we don't receive that until October of the following school year, so I appreciate all of their efforts to get that done.
Yes, very timely this year. Thank you. Okay, all in favor? 7-0. D, starting salaries for personnel not covered by collective bargaining agreements, and then the other sections related to that in terms of salaries for personnel, not just the starting, but the salaries and the benefits. Oh, I have to do those individually. Yes, I'm sorry. So, starting salaries for non-collective bargaining personnel. Need a motion to approve. Kevin, second. Marty? Question, discussion? All in favor? 7-0. E, sorry, salaries for personnel not covered, not the starting salaries, but just the salaries of those already here. Motion to approve. Judy, second Damon. Questions or comments? All in favor? 7-0. And then F, the benefits related to the same employees we were discussing. Motion to approve. Kevin, second. Marty? Questions or comments? All in favor? 7-0. Okay, presentations. We have our transportation capital project.
Okay, tonight we have George Spinaris with Campus Construction.
First, thank you. Make sure the microphone's on, if you will. The blue light should be shining.
There we go. I hope everybody's doing well. I'm here to talk about the 2016 Transportation Facility Capital Project. This slide represents the budget breakdown. Transportation incidental budget is $1.8 million. Construction contingency budget is $403,000. Construction contracts budget is, construction budget is $9.7 million. And the transportation facility referendum is $8.9 million. 2015 referendum is $782,000. The adjusted construction contingency budget is $403,000. We have approximately 9% of the project complete. We have not touched the contingency budget at all. Contract allowances are still at zero, and we're tracking about $84,000, $85,000 worth of pending issues. So at the Middleside Elementary School, the mass grading site work has been completed, and we're just gearing up for the site work to start in July of 2018 at both Northside and Dudley. So we're waiting for the kids to vacate the area, and then we're going to come in with some large machinery. So I have some OOP pictures. So this was the 4-square court area when we first started back in April, May. And this is what it currently looks like now. Unfortunately, it's a little dark, but it really came out quite nice. We hydroseeded the area, and it's coming up quite nicely. Grass is growing, perfect conditions this summer and spring. Here's just another view of the area. So at the Transportation Center, we've removed the trees and the grubbing on the east and west property lines, so both sides going back. We've boxed out the new asphalt areas at the north property line, which is the rear property line. We've boxed out for new asphalt at the entry areas and fueling areas, so if you pass by, you'll see that everything has been dug up and there's gravel every place, and bus drivers have been great with us. We've relocated them and parking and everything else, and we've had presentations with them, and everything is going really well. They've been really accommodating. So we've excavated the site where the actual building is is planned to be built, and we've actually taken all the spoils out and installed structural fill in preparation for the new foundation system, which is going to start soon. We've milled out a lot of the asphalt in front of the area, and we're actually boxing out sidewalks now. The retaining wall has been completed, and our small little site office has been built in the bus wash area. Kind of open air, but nice. Work to start in July 2018, actually June 25th, probably next week, is the foundation system itself. So now we're going to start to see the building being erected. Site work is the milling of the asphalt and drainage. So once the buses are removed from the site, we're going to start taking up all the asphalt. Inclusive of that work is the conduit and the new light poles and the bus radiator warmers. And then the north side or back property line, we're going to start grubbing out and taking some of the trees out, put a construction fence in, and start setting it up towards the back of the property. So I have a few photos. This is basically the building pad box out for the new foundation system. So you can see how far down we dug. We removed all that dirt, and it actually came up with stone about 4 feet. So this is the electrical conduit. So from the basically from the transformer, this is going to provide power for the new building. So it's quite extensive. And this is where the new transformer vault is going to be located, and that's what the transformer vault actually looks like. So all those conduit that you saw previously are going to come into this area and around the old transportation building to the front of the building. And this is basically just a milling work, so we're taking up all the old asphalt and prepping for new asphalt to be installed. This is the manhole, so you can see how high it's actually set, and this is how high up the transportation building is actually going to be installed. And that's the trench from earlier for the conduit. New water main. And here's the retaining wall from the farmer's view looking back at the building. And that's pretty much it. Any questions?
What's been the biggest problem?
What's been the biggest problem? Just maintaining schedule. We're running so fast with things right now. Everything is moving at a rapid pace, which is great. So we've had great weather. That's really not a problem, is it? So no, everything's going well, extremely well. No complaints. No, wonderful actually. Bus drivers have been great. We've really put them through a lot. We threw a lot at them because it's
So-
just unexpected work, and they've
So
been
over the
wonderful.
next couple days, probably in the next week, we'll be transitioning the buses.
Yes.
If you want to talk a little bit about that and what that's going to look like and entail.
Sure. The small buses are going to be moved over to Minerva. The large buses to the high school. Oh, Martha Brown, I'm sorry. The drivers will be going over to Minerva.
That's right.
So the site will be vacated at that point, and then we're just going to start milling. So you're going to see a lot of work around the site. We're actually boring across the road. We started today to put in the electrical lines and the water lines across the road, so there's quite a lot of activity, but the bus drivers have been awesome. We've pretty much let them know, and your staff has been great every step of the way of what's going on, so so far everything is moving well. Well, thank you again for having me. Have a good night.
Throughout the summer, there'll be updates. We'll be using our
Yes.
social media and our website to talk about our progress and, the things that are going well and the things that, we're anticipating as we move along. They'll be communicating to the neighbors this summer, particularly in the village area, Brooks Hill, JP, Minerva DeLand, because there will be some increased traffic in that area because the bus drivers will be parking at Minerva DeLand, and that's where the shuttling will be occurring. But the team's poised with communication, and, we're always open to conversation about how that's going to look, so.
The buses themselves will be back on that property by this new school year, is that right?
Yes.
Right.
But I assume we have buses, we're utilizing buses over the summer for summer school and so forth?
Correct, yeah, we
So-
use buses in the summer, mostly small buses, so out of Martha Brown.
So the bus drivers will park at Minerva?
Martha Brown in the summer, so,
They'll park at
yeah.
Martha Brown?
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
Mhm.
okay. And fueling, we'll be using the BOCES cooperation over the summer?
We've got the BOCES that was approved on a previous board meeting, and then tonight on the bid was an award for the school year with Sampson Fuel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Okay, a code of conduct presentation. Deb Miles, invite you to come up.
So this is part of our, as she approaches, this is part of our annual review. Really happy with the work that we're doing around our code of conduct and engaging different stakeholders as we try to make sure that our expectations are clear for all school members. So Deb is going to be talking about some of the changes. You've had the code of conduct for the past couple weeks, and Deb Miles.
Thanks. Okay, so each year, as Brett indicated, we review the code of conduct and use administrators.
I don't think your microphone's on.
Okay, sorry. So each year, as Brett indicated, we review the code of conduct and have administrators and psychologists on the committee to go through. And so this year, we did it with a little bit different lens, not totally encompassing the entire code of conduct, but trying to weave in some of the language related to our PBIS programming, positive behavior intervention services or supports, and then also some of the restorative language that we want to start thinking about as we're looking at discipline and working with students to make sure that they learn from the experience and, of course, hopefully don't repeat the same infraction. So I will just go through, it's a lengthy code of conduct, as you know, so I will just go through and highlight only the areas in which we made changes or recommended changes. So page 3, that first section, you'll see, I know that we shared this with you guys in advance, so you'll see the areas that have a strike through and then the indicated language is included in red. And so with this particular section on page 3, this is where we just took out the original statement and then added a little bit lengthier statement where we're putting in some of the restorative practices in this piece. So really just kind of talking about equal access, a wide range of supports and interventions, engaging students in restorative interventions that keep them connected to the school community, and identifying possible consequences of unacceptable conduct, ensure when discipline is necessary that it's administered promptly, fairly, with the goal of teaching a new problem-solving skills. So that's the important aspect that we're trying to highlight there. So then, if you continue on page 4, this piece is new, total addition to the Code of Conduct, and you're going to see this same identical language in our Code of Conduct, in our district-wide safety plan, and also in our quick reference guide. And this speaks to the behavior intervention plan, or behavior intervention team that we have been doing with law enforcement. And so this really just identifies for anybody looking at the Code of Conduct what the purpose of that team is, what our goal is, and really just obviously in today's day and age making sure that we are well aware of any concerns that we have regarding any type of threat or harm to our school community, and how we are working through resources in the community to be preventative and proactive in that regard. And I will just keep going, and if you guys have questions, you're certainly welcome to stop me and ask.
I'll save you the end.
Okay, that's fine. So then on page 20, just a little slight change. Every time we go through this, we find things that sometimes just get put in the wrong places and don't really make sense. So under the student use for electronic communication devices, somehow a little bit of dress code got slipped in there. So we're just cleaning up that area because that's actually talked about later in the plan. On page 21, under the comprehensive alcohol and drug procedures, just adding a little bit of language in terms of any of the illegal drugs or paraphernalia that is found in a search, in terms of the disposal of it. And then on page 25, we have, again, a little bit of the restorative practices piece. This, again, is still in the drug and alcohol piece, and so upon re-entry, just that we provide the opportunity for the student to repair relationships and restore their connection to the school community. On page 26, under disciplinary consequences, procedures, and referrals, again, this really just talks about that explicit teaching, not just giving a discipline consequence, but talking about what they need to do differently in the future and what skills we might need to develop with them so that it doesn't reoccur. On page 27, just a little cleanup in terms of the administrative staff that are able to assess that list of consequences. On page 28, there were a list of consequences that I just referred to, and then there were a list of definitions, and the 3 consequences didn't have a definition. Probably assumed to be, pretty logical in terms of what you do, but given, again, PBIS and making sure that we're being explicit in how we are, managing our discipline, we have added definitions for oral warnings, and written notification to parents. On the bottom of page 29, just a change in wording in terms of referral form as opposed to removal form. We don't really have a removal form per se. On page 31, more language in terms of that they're documenting that, not really in a log, they're documenting that in our student management system. On page 31, also just a reorganization there in terms of the order in which the consequence is heightened. And then finally, on page 42, just updated that information in regard to the single point of entry. And just making sure that it's clear to parents and community members when you approach our buildings or come to our buildings as a visitor, what's expected of you. I guess that was it. Questions?
I actually read most of this, and it was good. And I really did appreciate the change in tone from being penal to restorative. And I think the process of learning through mistakes is really important, as like learning through failure in school. And I think that's the important part. So, but I did have a couple of questions that I did have. First of all, this is not specifically a student code of conduct. This is
It's a district code of conduct, right?
That applies to.
Applies to staff, students, yeah.
Right. And
Parents, community members, right,
okay.
that are visiting.
Right. And so there was, expectations for students, school counselors, expectations for service personnel, staff, and so forth. And I just thought, should there be expectations of coaches or booster clubs, for example, or, what I'm saying, any external organization that's touching our district or touching our children? I mean, it's just a question I had. Because there was expectations for Board of Education.
The coaches would be under staff.
Okay.
Right, so that's right, I was able to get clarification on that component.
Okay. All right. It just struck me that, it's very spelled out, like
For other
everybody
positions,
has
yeah.
expectations, which is appropriate and very good. But there's a couple that were missing, and I thought
Okay.
that maybe we want to think about. Also, what I saw was that from a dress code perspective, I thought there was, in red, there was a strikeout that teachers were no longer specifically called out in the code of conduct, and not that I think they need to be necessarily, but there are examples. But then I saw somewhere just now that it did say that teachers exemplify the dress code and should be examples.
Yeah, the only changes we made to that language, like the strikeout on the dress code, was,
Yep.
it was because it was inadvertently put under an unrelated topic. So it was under electronic communication devices, so we were talking about the conduct around that, and then somehow the dress code was slipped in there.
Right.
So we pulled it out because it's also repeated in the same terminology later in the code of conduct.
Okay, all right, okay. Just one other high-level comment was I thought that, I really liked it, I liked the wording, but I thought adding the word consistency, like applying the code of conduct consistently. And I realize that there's individual circumstances every time there's an issue that people have to have the latitude to apply kind of context behind what happened, but I think a consistent application of the code of conduct, as much as possible anyway, is important. So I kind of like that word.
Sure.
I don't-
That would be the expectation, and the actual regulation of enforcing the code of conduct. So, when we talk to our administrators, when we work with our teachers, that consistency is what we're shooting for. Now, if you talk to Mrs. Miles, she'll talk to you about PBIS and what we're trying to do with that K-12 to build on that concept of consistency. So it's alive and well in how you implement it and the expectation, and that is in,
Yeah, so I would just say that the code of conduct is written for the purpose of making sure there's consistency, but we also know that human, interaction happens differently.
Right.
So truly, the work that we're doing with the PBIS, we're looking at minors and major referrals. We're looking at going through our school tool system and taking 30-some-odd disciplinary descriptions of conduct
Right.
and reducing them to 10 very consistent ones based on what you would handle in the classroom, what you would handle in the main office,
Yep.
and cleaning that up to sort of remove the subjectivity, if you will, when
Yeah.
a teacher interacts with a
Okay.
student. And so that things are fair, they are consistent, no matter who you are, and
Right,
done.
it's a challenge, right? It's a challenge in every area of life. We're all humans, right? We
Right.
all have explicit and implicit biases.
Right.
And so just to focus on being consistent, trying to remove those biases, because we all have them, right? So-
Right, and that's a lot of our work in the future, because, restorative practices is going to be coming on our horizon. We need to kind of work with our staff and do some professional development with administrators as well as with our teaching staff, and support staff in that regard. We have been cited before in this district as, for disproportionality with students of different ethnicity being suspended more frequently under special education. So we definitely need to look at that piece. We've gone to some trainings around that, and we intend to broaden that training to the district staff and administration.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks. I think it's great, and I did suggest to Brett that we do have some standard reports that we're going to be looking at from a district or from a board perspective, and maybe some metrics around the code of conduct and some of the things like suspensions in school, out of school,
Right.
how often we have issues.
Right.
Just because, not that we want to get micro involved, but just from a trend perspective.
Sure.
Do we, understand if we have an issue that we need to be aware of?
Yep. So again, as I keep saying PBIS, because PBIS is our big umbrella of all these other things that we're doing in district that fall underneath that. And with the implementation of that, right now we are in the training stages for Minerva DeLand Fairport High School for year 1. Next year, they will be at the Tier 1 level. Our elementary and middle schools are moving along nicely, however, still at the Tier 1 level. So they have tiered infidelity surveys or inventories that they need to do at their building level, and as they continue to accomplish the tasks and the work under the PBIS model, then they will move up those tiers. And part of that is collecting that data and making sure that we have that evidence to determine where we are with that. So surveys, through the behavior intervention team, we just surveyed the staff, which that closes end of day Friday, in terms of the climate, overall perspective of the safety of our school climate. So we're interested in getting that feedback, and that kind of baseline data is going to help us to, determine our trajectory with this work.
Okay, good.
So this is just the beginning. If you look at a code of conduct that is very restorative, it looks very different than where we are. So we have work to do and hope to keep moving this code of conduct in that direction with the right training to the staff.
One more question, just in terms of, I think this is a really important document, and I think so is the safety plan is also important. And my question is, as we have new employees, staff, or we have a new vice principal coming into the district, do we have some sort of an onboarding process to make sure that they review these and are aware of them from a process, culture, process perspective?
If you take a look at the strategic plan, particularly when we speak to orientations on the professional development pieces, that's part of that work. Of course, it's introduced, it's developed, but has it been done systematically? No. It's the strategic plan relative to educational programming and the expectations around that. The expectations are high around that of having a formal plan.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, we could share that as we move along too.
I think it's important just to get everybody on the same page when we come into a district.
Certainly anybody hired gets a copy of it. And then, of course, every building expectation in September on opening day is to review it with your students in your classroom. So
And the-
consistency of that happening is a little different, but it's work that we need to continue to look at.
We have every employee sign for it, and it's also in purple, the cover of bright purple, so it's hard to miss, but it's definitely something that we go over with not just administrators, but any staff member who's hired for any position in the district.
Okay, all right, good, thanks. Thank you.
I do have a question regarding the dress code. Number 2, recognize that extremely brief garments such as tube tops, net tops, halter tops, spaghetti straps, plunging necklines, front and or back, and see-through garments and or short hemlines are not appropriate. Is that for boys and girls? I mean, it just
Certainly today it
seems
is,
like very
absolutely.
sexist language in here.
Well, I don't know what page you're on. I don't know that when you read it
Page
that way, I
25.
didn't read it to say he or she. It was just a general statement. So I think it applies to everybody.
It applies to everybody. Well, that,
So mesh
you know, being the father of 2 young ladies, it seems that this is targeting only the girls. And to me, I think
Because of the
that's
type of
very
clothing,
inappropriate,
right.
and I think that we need to rework this particular section.
Okay,
That's
did you
just
say
my opinion.
45?
Pardon me?
Did you say page 45?
Page
25.
Page 25, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
I agree. I think we need to look at the language
That's
of
fine.
that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
My question is not with the staff. My question is, how do we get the community to be aware of, particularly when we come to board meetings or we go to public activities, where the community is not always appropriate. We expect it from our students, but to have the whole community act in appropriate ways is a challenge at times. Sometimes we've seen people at these meetings, and sometimes we've seen people at events, public sporting events, where it's the parents that are the problem, not so much the students. And I just wonder, we have this code, it says that it'll be provided to people, and I appreciate that. I don't remember seeing it, but I don't look for that sort of stuff because I'm not the parent. I just wonder, how do we make sure that people understand that we consider this important? The other question, I know we do a number of different things for our people who speak other languages. Is this part of the information they will also get about appropriate information for the school year? Do we try to do something for them in ways that they can understand?
So do we translate it?
Yeah?
Not currently,
Or
no.
Okay.
So to answer your first question, as a parent, you have access to the Code of Conduct through the district website, and you also have access to an abbreviated version of the Code of Conduct through your student's agenda.
Okay.
We use the agendas K-12, to my knowledge. I think they're
So
still
it's
using it at the high
available
school.
for parents, will get that information into their homes.
It comes via
It
your
comes in-
student, so if
Yep, I
you're asked
understand.
to see it, if
Okay.
you're involved and you're asked to see it, then you would see it, you could read it, you could look through it, and of course, it's on the website. We
Okay.
certainly don't.
And all
mail it.
building
We don't mail
principals,
home.
as the school year starts, refer parents to the
To
code
the-
of conduct,
Okay.
open houses, and
I mean, most of the
Open
times we're
communications.
looking at people who are, the community members are parents. So that's important too, but I just wondered. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, actually, we'll shift gears now to, sorry, to the district-wide safety. Policy.
So many of the similar kinds of things that Deb just talked about from the Code of Conduct hold true to the district safety plan. So there are actually two plans. The actual district safety plan is about a 60-page document, and you will notice that the majority of the information that you'll find in this document is the same as the document that you would have seen last year, because a great deal of amount of time was put towards updating this document. And so we felt like this document did not need a great deal of review this year, but we have updated some names, and we've added in the behavioral intervention piece. So on page 8 of the big plan, and then also in the quick reference guide, you'll see the same wording that talks about what the behavioral intervention plan and threat assessment team is, what they do, so that the public can see that as well. In the quick reference guide, which is about a 40-page document, internal information that should be shared outside of the district that would be for our employees to be paying attention to, but not necessarily the entire district, you'll find in the quick reference guide. But the two documents are complementary to each other, and you'll see the same information in both of them. So really the only changes, aside from some names, we've added the safety committee members and updated them, have been updated in the document, but the only other pertinent information that changed is the behavioral intervention team information. So the idea is that this will come to you every year at the end of the preceding school year for your review, so that it will be open for comments, and then you'll have time to look that over. The community will have time to make comments if they need to, and then it will be set in place for September. Okay.
Again, really comprehensive. The one thing about it, if we look at a couple of instances that we had this year, right? Recognition that kids have communication devices in their hands, right? And they're streaming stuff and tweeting stuff and posting stuff, and it's like really challenging to figure out, okay, what's really real and what's just, and we don't want to ignore anything, but I mean, does the safety plan, and I don't know what the answer to that is, but does it address the fact that, you've got, at the high school, for example, you've got thousands of kids, each one of them with a venue to distribute information real time around a certain, how do we deal with that?
So we're certainly working on some training for both staff and students in the future, but one of the things that we really like is some more, an easy way for anonymous reporting and/or talk to the kids about how we're asking them to report things that they're seeing out in social media,
Right.
so that we can react to that. And then as part of the team, anything can come to the building level team, and we have law enforcement support. So again, they could be also helping us in that social media piece and helping
Yeah.
to review what's out there.
Okay. Do you have strategy, well, I'm sorry.
In both of the instances, in the month of May, we dealt with a lot of social media, 2 major social media instances where it took an idea and made it a little bit more,
Yeah.
subjective and through a drama-based lens, and it really made it complicated, and it's challenging.
Right.
The police do get involved.
Yep.
They're excellent partners. When they do get involved, there's a little bit more resources and latitude that we can use to try to get information, but it's one for the ages. It's hard to manage, and I think, how we can report it, how we can educate parents and families as we move along is going to be important.
Right. Okay. Okay. It's complicated, so, okay. I think, just those cases in May that were happening, I mean, there was a lot of noise happening from everywhere. It's a great opportunity to, you have to sort through it, and you guys did a really nice job, but you have to go, it's a great opportunity to look back and say, okay, what happened? What could we do to eliminate some of the variables, and how do we get to the root faster? And I'm not saying, I think you guys did everything right, but the more I knew about it, the more I was like, wow, this is getting really complicated, because there's so much information. A lot of it was just not true, right? And it causes delays and everything else.
All of it was
All
not
of it
true.
was not
Yeah.
true, right.
All of it was not true.
I think that's too, is just some of the work of the administrators in the buildings, and they have a great handle on this, and they work with the student body to kind of educate,
Yep.
what is expected of them in terms of using technology on campus and so forth. So again, parenting involvement as well. We buy the phones for them.
Yep.
You need to have the conversation about what's appropriate. Students that engaged in that activity were dealt with through administration. Parents were notified and brought into school to see what took place and what they shared. And students were, told to take it down off of social media because it was absolutely unfactual.
Is there a way to be a little bit more proactive with that in messaging when kids come in at the beginning of the year, talk about expectations?
So I think that's what we're trying to accomplish. If you take a look at our health curriculum, you take a look at, when we introduce, how do you interact? What are the skills that we need? I think it needs to be embedded in what we do. I don't think it's just in one class, though. I think it's in all the curriculum as we move forward. And, how do we, treat people, and how do we use the medium as a way to communicate in a pro-social manner? It's different. It's different work, and it's not the same work than even when I was in the classroom, because of the exponential factors of social media.
And it gets pushed down younger and younger.
It does.
Yes.
But, I am excited about what we're trying to do at the elementary level with our health curriculum, and, looking at, all those pieces of, self-regulation, about pro-social skills and behaviors, so they can, manage in this world.
Okay, great. Thanks, I'll stop talking now. That was great.
No, I was
Thank
just
you.
going to add, it's just repetitive work, and it has to happen ongoing throughout the year. And one of the activities we did through Brotherhood Sisterhood Week was post something positive. So it's bringing attention to, you can post, but put something meaningful out there and positive, not all of the other negative, feedback around mental health, around any of these issues that are going on.
Right.
And I had a question about some of the drills, exercises, the shelter in place, lockout, lockdown. I think we're trying to navigate between preparing students for catastrophic events and the anxiety caused by preparing students for catastrophic events that are fairly unlikely statistically. So my question is, for the younger students, how often are we participating in these drills?
So the drills are mandated, and the timeframes for them to be accomplished. We had them clustered together over about a week's time, but we found that to be not as effective in terms of getting the information out to the kids. So we are going to be spreading that out, but we're also going to be working with training with both administrators and staff about how to conduct those drills, what are effective drills, and at what level do we present information to the younger children to keep them safe but still engaged in understanding.
I was walking the halls. I was at Jefferson Avenue, and they were involved in one of these drills. And it was just a totally different experience. I got pulled into a classroom, and I had the pleasure of seeing a teacher skillfully talk to these, I believe they were kindergartners. And it was done with so much tact and done at a level of, discernment and how do you explain what's happening, and, so they did it right. In that instance, I do think you're right, it needs to be done with a level of discernment as we move forward. But I was amazed. I was like, wow, where am I? It was pretty good.
And when you say they're mandated, they're state mandated for how frequently?
Yeah, so and a certain number of fire drills that have to happen, and some of them have to be evacuations, some of them have to be stay put. So it outlines about all of those for us, and then we follow those guidelines and then add in whatever we feel is appropriate based on what's in here as well.
12 a year, 8 in the fall, 4 in the spring.
Welcome.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
This quick reference guide will be open for public comment for the next 30 days. At our August workshop, we'll have a public hearing scheduled for the district-wide safety plan. And if there are no changes to be made, we'll be looking to approve it at the August business meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay. Then next on the agenda, board discussion action items are board policies first reading. A motion to approve the first reading. Kevin, second. Judy, discussion.
This public expression fits very nicely in with what we just heard about
Yeah.
the plan of regarding the code of conduct, because we had a conversation about the code of conduct for people making expressions in our meetings, and I think we had this conversation. What can we do to make sure that they all understand what's expected of them? So,
I noticed in that policy I had written down going through it, since we've had some reason to revisit this one, right, about, it did say our policy is not to respond, so the reasoning was good, right, so that we give the administrators time to research and get back to us. I think that reasoning is good, but does it apply universally? Is that something we want policy-wise? I mean, as a broad statement, or, give us any latitude, I don't know, to respond to things that maybe don't need that research?
That you have the option.
Yeah, the way that it's being,
understood.
yeah.
Yeah.
We understand that even though the policy says we generally don't respond because we're waiting to get the information from the superintendent, there are times when we may wish to respond. And that's just the way life is. And it may not be over a question of what happens in this particular situation. It may be something that, for whatever reasons, we want to respond to it.
Especially if something incorrect has been stated, that we may want to correct to say, no, that's not really the way it's done, or whatever it is, so that we have the option.
Questions can be misleading, and they can, if you don't stop the questions at least, it sounds like you're agreeing with the question. And that can sometimes
Yeah, I guess I
make
did
things worse.
read it in G as, I don't see options, right? We will listen to the remarks of the speakers. However, the policy of the board is to provide no response or take any action until the superintendent or members of the staff have reported on the issue. And then it's crossed out after that.
I just think we have to remember the purpose of this meeting is for the board to meet and conduct business, right? So the fact that we have public comments is an opportunity for us to listen and learn, but it's not to really have an active dialogue. And there's other venues for that. So I think we need to be clear that, I mean, it's frustrating because, believe me, I've been on the other side of the podium, right? And I've wanted, like, okay, respond, right? And these guys just sit there and look at you like, and it's frustrating, but it's still not, now, it's not the time, right? There's other venues to have dialogue or question and answer or come speak with the superintendent. But but the board meeting it's a business meeting, right? It's not really to have open a dialogue back and forth with just everybody, because it's just, we don't have time for that.
And I'm agreeing. What are the other venues? Because I don't know that people, not that it happens too often, but I don't know that there is. Said you've had that experience. What other venue would you have gone to where you felt like you were getting dialogue or response? We had the
Oh, I think it's got.
Meet the Candidate Night this year, which was different because we didn't have.
Well, we do have community forums for budget, right, that are opportunities to have dialogue. Maybe we need to think about that, providing opportunities to kind of share. I mean, it's hard because I think the people that really do have expressions and questions, they need to get feedback, and it's very frustrating to send emails to the board, long emails, which I've done, not getting a response immediately, or to come to a board meeting. I've actually sat in the crowd and raised my hand wanting to talk, right? So I'm that guy. It's hard, but I understand that from a business perspective, Monday night or Tuesday night at 6:30 is not the time where we're going to sit and have a open back and forth dialogue about any issue. It's just we don't have time for that. But we should maybe think about creating another venue where we do, because I think that it's public education, right? And people do have questions and comments. So I'd support, I don't know, quarterly or twice a year or something like that, have more of an open public dialogue with people. I think we've tried to do that in some way, but I think we may expand on that. That's just my own opinion. I know we're getting off track with this policy, but I just think that if people come to the board business meeting on Tuesday night, there shouldn't be an expectation. We shouldn't leave any room for an expectation that we might
Engage.
go back and forth.
But the expectation is, there is follow-up, and,
Yeah.
We do reach out when if we have to, if we have to clarify. I think that it's leaving us open to clarify, but, we will reach out and,
I think.
And I think the expectation is that we will find out what the information is from you.
Yeah.
If the question is asked, what's the district going to do about X, Y, or Z? I may not know that information, and we may have to wait for you. And the same thing happens, Damon, to the people who want to send us those long impassioned letters. What are we going to do about X, Y, or Z? And I think we, in the past, have said we want the president, or one person, to be the spokesperson on this particular topic. And a lot of times, we don't respond except to say, thank you for your letter, because we are waiting to hear the board or the district response. What are we going to do about the fact that we want to save $1 million? Okay, there's a lot of good answers to that particular question, however it's worded. But I don't think I'm the one that's going to answer that question and speak for the board. That's one thing we've said, is that one person is not speaking, is not the board, that we are a collective group. So it's a tricky issue. It's a tricky issue. That's why I say there are times when we might want to clarify a question, and that's different from responding to the question. And there are times when, so I think I think the policy is that, as in general, we don't answer because we would like to get this information from the superintendent, from the administration. What's the answer? And then that person gets the response, and we will also have that information, because what will happen is we'll then turn around and get that question, what are you going to do about this or that, will come in the community. By then, we'll have information.
Yeah,
But it's...
I understand that, but I mean, there's sometimes that somebody's asked a question, and we know the answer at the time. We know it.
We
It's not like
wanted,
we have
we
to go
tried
research
to
it.
work with that, because I agree with you. If somebody's asking something and it is a simple, clear response,
What
it
day is
can
the
be
election?
made. So maybe we need to work with that wording a little
Got
bit
it.
more to get to where, because we were in the same place you are. And maybe we just need to finesse those words a little
Any
bit
thoughts on
better,
what you would
too.
like to see in terms of language?
I mean, it's still our policy not to respond or, take action or anything, but
I just
we're
think-
not forbidden from speaking. And if something, there is a
There's
simple
correction
answer,
of
or there's a
information.
simple correction to be made or something, we certainly aren't handcuffed and muzzled that we can't do that. So, but if you think we should work with that a little bit, we certainly can.
Well, I think we just don't want to cause more confusion or set
No,
expectations of
I agree.
something that we're not
We can
in.
be
But
more
I don't want to
clear.
sit here and be like, well, we don't know the answer. We'll wait for Brett to figure it out. We'll get
All right,
back
Brett,
to
you
we'll
figure
look
it
at
out.
again
That's what
and
you get the
maybe
big
we
bucks
can
for.
do
Right.
something
Not
better
that
with
you're a
it.
really smart guy, Brett, but sometimes we know the answer too. So, but I'm just saying, it's just it's just, do we want to set precedent to like have an open Q&A at these meetings? Or do we
No,
want
we
to say,
don't want
okay,
that.
we'll take your name and we'll provide an answer back to
Yeah.
you, but not at this
But
meeting.
sometimes it's a simple thing that
Yep.
can be stated, and sometimes someone just feels moved to say something.
Yep, yep,
You know that.
yep, yep, yep.
And, you know, we're entitled to do
It's-
that.
yep.
It's our business
hard-
meeting.
It's hard to not.
Hard to tell
And I
them
had
not to
this
talk.
conversation with somebody this week who's like, they're so frustrated that we just sit here with blank stares on our face and we don't respond. And it's like, well, that's not really what this meeting's about. The meeting's about our business, but we want to hear from you. It's hard to not respond. It's hard to sit here and listen and not say something in return. You know, but that's just the way that's the way these meetings work. Like, I can't show up at a board meeting at my company and
Why not?
address them openly and expect them to respond. That's
Right.
just,
Right, and that shouldn't be the expectation at a
Right.
business meeting.
right. Could.
You could.
Might be my job.
I didn't, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't
There
have
could be consequences.
specific, I think the reasoning's good, I say, but I know we had expressed either in workshop or other times that, do we need a venue? More the question that, so it's not necessarily to the policy itself. Unless there's ideas on how we get, or manage that expectation, right? I'm not a fan of reading lengthy policies at the start of a comment period, right? So that we're managing that expectation, but I want people to feel as well that they've been heard and that they're going to get information back rather than walk away. You know, as you described, the frustration, and I think we experienced some of that this year.
We talked about putting something out at the front table that, you know, really speaks to that, to refer people to that as part of our practice. So you're not sitting there reading a lengthy, but maybe just a little synopsis or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, clerk.
Yeah, perhaps that, it's not, again, it's not about even the reading of the policy, it's about those who are in the community and want to be heard, walk away feeling that they were heard, and being heard is more than just the getting into our ears, right? It's the actual recognition, thank you, and you need a response of some sort, whether that's you reaching out and inviting them in, which I know you do.
Which happens, yeah.
But I don't know that they know that sometimes at the time it ends here, right? Maybe they do, because you've said it, but.
Well, the other aspect of the conversation that I had was that the person was upset that we weren't streaming the public comments publicly for the two people to watch. But the thing I tried to explain was because of the nature of the meeting and the fact that we can't respond, it does everybody a disservice to stream the comments, because the comments may be correct or coming from a certain angle or incorrect, and we are not going to respond and correct with the statement, right? So from a public, the meeting, that's not really not part of the meeting anyway. We haven't really adjourned the meeting or, started the meeting at that point. So, if we were offered an opportunity to clarify the public comments or, kind of have an open dialogue or debate about it, maybe, that would be, we would stream that, if you would, but just having a one-sided public comment without our ability to really respond to it, that's just not appropriate.
Yeah, for a very long time, we never did. I'm not sure how they started to get streamed again, but it was our policy not to stream them for years.
Yep.
And then somehow they got on, and so we just went back to what our policy has always been, that
Yep.
they wouldn't be streamed.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Any others of the policies in the first reading? Comments, questions?
Do you want us to go back with public expression, or
No.
are you ready to vote on this for the first time?
I'm ready to vote. It was more to get at the issue of, that, again, I've heard, and maybe it's to take it more to a workshop put on the parking lot, is do we want to offer other venues where there can be some of that interaction? I did chuckle a little bit when Damon said there's other venues for it, but I couldn't think of too many where there really are.
Yeah, you made me think.
Yeah,
Well, the-
sorry, didn't want to
we
do that
always-
at the end of school year.
We always have the meetings where we ask for input regarding, in the winter, we ask for input regarding the budget. And that's a good place that very few people go to. I think sometimes people like to be on camera, and this is the place where you can be on camera. And remember, some of the comments that we hear when they're on camera at these kinds of meetings are often, something has happened to my child's teacher or some program that my child likes. And it's very, very personal conversations that we're hearing. So often, after the fact, we very seldom get someone coming in proactive to say, here's what we want, before there's a problem, before we've made a decision, before the day of the decision. Because the day of the decision, there's been a lot of conversations about these decisions that we've had.
Right, but they
That's
don't
just the
always
ti-
know
they-
before the budget process what it
That's
is
right.
we'll be looking at, the programs that are being reviewed, and so it is hard to, that's our timing, right?
It's a timing
Question that we
issue.
have. So anyway, no, I, again, it wasn't the policy itself per se as much, so I am comfortable, but wanted to throw that out there.
Well, if you think of anything else, it's only the first reading.
Mm-hmm.
Get something to us, and at our next policy meeting, we can still fix
Change
it
it a
for
little.
the second reading.
Okay.
I did have a question about the cell phone. And I'm just, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, but we don't buy cell phones for employees, correct?
Correct.
Right, their own,
We pay their monthly fee. There are some with our.
Or, yeah, it's an or purchase a district cell phone, and then we deduct an amount out of their semi-monthly check to pay for personal use. So, yeah, it's an either or.
say that one more time, though, I'm sorry.
We deduct an amount, there's an agreed upon amount that we deduct out of their monthly check, or their
Okay,
semi-monthly
to
payroll.
pay for their.
Correct.
But so how can we say the phone can't be used by anybody other than a district employee? It's their phone.
That's a
Yeah,
specific
that's the district
cell
issued phone. Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
there's either one or
We
two
don't
of
have many.
those.
So
It's
we-
very
so
minimal.
We don't have many out there that do
There
that,
aren't many
right?
out there. Most people have transitioned to using their own phone.
And that's where the monthly, contribution is.
Is that what he
Okay,
is?
but that's only for certain positions, correct? I mean, that's not
Correct.
everybody that has a cell phone.
Correct.
And again, that's the last paragraph, right, where they can choose to have a district cell phone or their personal, of which
Correct.
case we do some set reimbursement for their cell phone.
Correct.
If they use personal.
Yep.
I mean, this is one of those policies that's coming to an end in some ways, right, where most people have transitioned to personal, but not everybody, I understand that.
Right.
I just can't imagine carrying two cell phones around.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Any other of those policies? Well, we really hit first reading hard today. Okay.
So are we gonna table the first one and bring that back?
Public expression?
Second reading, or first reading again?
Don't need to, right? Changes can be made between now and the second reading if there's thoughts on how to change it.
Okay. I thought as policy overall, I was with Ariel today, and she showed me a box folder that has all the policies in there, right? First reading, second reading. There's only certain people on the board that have access to that, though. So, like, I don't have access because I'm not on the policy committee. So it makes it hard for me to, when these come back for a second reading, unless I remember that the first reading was this month, it makes it difficult for me to go back and find it. I mean, I just think, again, this is one of those policy, like, you know how last month we had a problem where there was 6 policies up for the second reading, but I couldn't find out what the first reading was and what changes were made, right? From the first reading to the second reading?
Sometimes there's none.
Okay, all right. Maybe I need some coaching on this too, right? So it's one of those things, like, I struggle with the flow of policy, right? I mean, I see a first reading, I see a second reading, I'm not quite sure what happens in between, or, so maybe if we could take, at our next workshop, maybe you can take 15 minutes and just do like the flow of policy, how it happens, how they come to us for review. I know we've talked about it before, but we've got new people on the board, and maybe it would be useful just to.
Don't use us. Damon. Don't use us. You really are that guy.
All right, okay. All right. Maybe we should just get a coffee at Panera, and you can explain it to me, if everybody else knows what they're doing. But, all right, all right, thanks. I'm confused.
Okay.
Kevin, there's a bus coming by.
I think it would be a good idea for us to look at a future workshop and talk about how do we want to get in public information to and from the public. Perhaps at different meetings besides this, but that's a different topic to consider. It seems to be hitting at the heart of what our concern is, public expression. This one says at public business meetings. And there must be an opportunity for us to have it at a different, let's put that
Typing it in right now.
larger topic at a different meeting.
We actually had some pretty good give and take when we had that meeting over at, was it Minerva?
Mhm.
Or
In the.
Brooks Hill?
or
Brooks Hill?
Brooks
Brooks
Hill,
Hill.
I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Brooks Hill. So if we were to have
Yeah. Yeah.
several of those meetings a year,
Mhm.
you know, to gather input.
Yep.
And have a give and take, as opposed to at the business meeting.
Mhm.
Just a suggestion.
Well, I think we have good dialogue around budget workshops, right? Community or staff or administration, we have a good dialogue, but there's a specific, it's based around budget, right? And maybe there's other venues that we might want to have once in a while that just are more open.
Yeah, just a community forum.
Yep, yep.
Good.
Ready to vote then? We've already had the motion. All in favor? 7-0. Second reading. Motion to approve the second readings? Maureen, second Joyce. Hate to say it. No, discussion action items or discussion questions? None? Okay, well, let's vote on that. All in favor? 7-0. Where's your hand up?
Yep.
7-0, okay. Okay, C, AS7 contract for services with Monroe One BOCES. Motion to approve. We have quite a few of these, by the way. Was that Joyce? Did I see your hand up? Sorry. And second, Marty, questions about this?
Yep. Just to give quick background, this is related to all the services we contract with BOCES with. It ranges from special ed services at about $7.5 million, our admin, rent, and capital that districts pay for across, transportation contract that we use BOCES for, a lot of curriculum instruction such as private and parochial textbooks, summer school, our EMCC program, arts and education, just to name a few of the things that is within BOCES. So we receive BOCES aid back on a portion of the services. Special ed is high-cost aid and stacked, so there's some of the pieces that come back in different forms of state aid. Thank you.
And this is not voting, I don't know your question, I wrote it in the parking lot for sure about going over BOCES budget a little bit. We voted on the administrative portion of the BOCES budget. This is not voting on the budget, this is our contract with BOCES, so this is coming out of our budget to pay
our
BOCES,
students.
right? For our students specifically.
Correct. This is our budget. You would have voted on the BOCES admin budget, which ultimately gets placed into the overall budget for schools, and that gets dispersed out, which is included within, Fairport's cost of BOCES admin costs and such. But this is our service request to BOCES for next year's.
And this is aidable, a lot of it.
Yeah, again, our BOCES aid is around $3 million, so not all of this is BOCES aidable, but we have high-cost aid, and especially the special ed piece is a big part of that.
But there was a time, a couple of years ago, when we heard that students who wanted specific services from BOCES, we only had budgeted X number of students, and some of them could not do this. So we increased the budget, we increased the allocation at that point in time. Are we still seeing an increase or a larger number? What are we seeing in terms of students wanting to come to, not special ed necessarily, but EMCC,
Yeah.
kids get to choose to be part of?
Remember,
the
we have declining enrollment.
Yes, I know.
So I would say proportionally, it's still the same,
Still-
but it's not in, the numbers that we were living with a few years back.
I guess that was my question, is how is it related to declining enrollment?
I think it's proportional. I don't think we're seeing less proportionately. I think, we have around 60 students at EMCC and participating in those programs. That, a few years back, we had 75, 80. So, but we've had declining enrollment over the past several years, so.
Thank you.
Sorry, taking notes. Okay, any other questions? All in favor? 7-0. School food service budget. Motion to approve. This reflects no price increase, right? Okay. I should have asked after the motion, sorry. Motion to approve? Marty, second. Kevin? Anything else you want to add to that, Matt? Or?
No, again, it's an overall decrease in the budget for food service. Food service operates on its own. It's a separate program than through the general fund, so any revenues they bring in from the state and federal aid, as well as sales for meals and a la carte, help fund the program. Just to give you an idea in terms of where the programs come from, we talked about free and reduced percentages, and it's right now around 21.5%. 5 years ago, it was around 14%. So we've seen the free and reduced population increase, which is about 1,200 total students, most of them on free.
13 years ago, it was 8%.
Yes, it was. Yep. So.
And that's a year-to-year increase? Free and reduced?
No, that's the percent of our enrollment that's on free and reduced percentage.
But I mean, I'm just saying
Yes, it's been trending upward.
It's been trending up, yeah. It's not, compared to 16, 17, it's maybe up 0.5%, so it's not a large increase from the previous year. Thank you.
I just want to say one thing about food service budget that's not reflected here, and I've talked about it before, is the charge for utensils, charging students for utensils. So in one of our tours, we had a conversation with the director about that, and she says that it's essential because of the major loss of utensils, I guess I would say, which she attributes mainly to adults. Just because I have access to the conversations of a lot of middle school students, I know some of the behaviors that have come about because of this that are not the kind of behaviors we want our students to have. In other words, it's become, some children are afraid because they don't have cash with them, being such a cashless society, so they have forgotten to bring a utensil from home. They don't want to go up and ask for one. So some of the compensatory skills that they've devised are stealing or having another student go and charge it to their lunch account or that sort of thing. But I just really think it's something that we need to revisit for students. If the problem is, as I was told, and a few of us were present for that, in the fact that adults come and take handfuls of the utensils for the teacher lounge or whatever, then I think that can be addressed by administration, but I just really regret that we're doing this with students. It does seem to be unevenly administered in different buildings. It's particular buildings that I hear about it from, and then others, when asked, will say, we don't have to do that in our school. So it's confusing, but I really wish we would address it.
I agree. I'm hearing complaints about that as well. So I don't know if
Noted.
it can come from our budget.
Noted,
or
thank you.
what.
Yep, thank you.
Any others? Thanks. All in favor? 7-0. The rental agreement between FBA and FCSD, motion to approve. Marty, second. Joyce? Questions, comments here? Standard every year we see this. All in favor?
I thought we had agreed to increase this by 100%.
You had agreed. Okay. All in favor? 7-0. F, security service contract extension. So this takes us through the end of 2019 school year. Motion to approve. Damon, second. Marty? Questions here? All in favor? Budget transfers as listed. Motion to approve those transfers. Maureen, second. Marty? Questions or comments?
Yes, can you tell us more?
Yep.
For those 5 people that are watching?
Yep.
They're looking so forward to this.
That's right.
Forward.
So as you flow down from the top to the bottom, the first transfer of 1.1 million is between two debt service accounts. So the money's budgeted in our transfer to debt service fund as we budget our debt service each year, and as we got the payment instructions when we went to bond, as we're going to bond for the $29.2 million project, we're doing a principal pay down on the ban, which really just be paid out of the ban principal account. Remember last meeting we did the ban interest, but as this is a pay down of principal, this was identified once we went out and got the numbers for the bond itself with the pay down instructions. The next piece is related to cross-contract with Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES. So that money is being transferred from a salary account in which we had talked about a special ed administrative position that was not filled during this 2017-18 school year. So money is available in that account to transfer over for the services with Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES for strategic planning in 2017-18. And then the next three are related to benefit accounts, the ERS, Employee Retirement System budget account, the unemployment insurance, and health insurance being transferred over into our maintenance account for projects that we talk about each year, and we look at the year end to see if we have the ability to complete a lot of that work. So this is work that's been on our building condition survey. A lot of it is paving. We hear these come up even in Health and Safety Committee talking about the conditions of our pavement across the district. And so this is allowing us to do work over in those areas based on some budgetary numbers that came in under. You know, unemployment's a good example where we had some unemployment expenses that didn't come in, were anticipated in 17-18, which is good news on that side of it. So, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? 7-0. H, 27-18 year-end fund balance analysis and use. Motion to approve. Marty, second. Joyce? As I understand it, this is the order of which things will be done. It's not necessarily what will happen. Is that more or less right?
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Although we did prove in the budget the 3.9 million already, assuming we were going to find that the
Yes,
third.
the 3.9 million. Yes,
Right.
that's why it's at the
Yes.
top of that list.
Right, yep.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments on that?
We have had some conversations about setting parameters as a board, Brett. We talked about how much on assigned fund balance, what's our target we want to have.
This speaks to a larger conversation, again, with our future planning and expectations around end of the year fund balances and, you know, how we reuse our assigned fund balance to balance our budget and our responsibility to set those parameters and making sure that, you know, those building condition survey items are posted up front, so we know that if there are variances within a range that the board expects, that those will be got at through that variance right up front. We'll talk about that. But also, if there are priority items, for example, like you know, antiquated phone systems, those pieces need to go into the budget as part of our general fund, and I think that's, you know, that's a welcomed expectation, because if it's a priority, it should be going in the budget. It shouldn't be, you know, held on to a list at the end of the year, because that's why we are where we are, because sometimes we never get to that list because of, you know, what's left over or not. So
This is a conversation that continues what we talked about as part of the Audit and Finance Committee last meeting we had. And we heard from you on how the end of the year is going, and what the priorities are as the final numbers come through. So this doesn't happen immediately, but because we still have to finish out the year. But this is the goals, how we do, what will happen when we get to the end of the year as our fund balance, and with our fund balance.
Thanks, Maureen. I know I missed the last audit committee meeting.
What's that?
Thank you, because I know I missed the last audit committee meeting. All in favor then? 7-0. I, Athletic Performance Service Agreement. Motion to approve. Damon, second. Joyce? Discussion, comments? All in favor? 7-0. Athletic Training Services Agreement. There's no way to do all these agreements in one vote. Motion to approve? Judy, second. Marty? All in favor? Or, sorry, discussion, didn't mean to rush it. All in favor? Looks like you're getting ready to be rushed. Internal Auditor recommendation. This is our current group, but we'll be continuing with them, right? So, for these 4 or 5 year period. Maureen, moved. Second. Marty?
And again, this is a conversation that we had at the Audit and Finance Committee. How do we determine who we want, and what are it's a balancing act. Do you want someone that's new? Do you want someone that has a track record? And so there was a long conversation, and Matt provided us, or Chris provided us with a look at different people that were asked for RFPs to see what they want. So we looked to see what different prices were, and what are we getting for the money that we're spending? What's the value in there? So there's a number of things to consider. So we looked at the information you had given us and said, yeah, sure, sounds good. Well, we didn't say that because we're not the board, so we just said, yeah, sure, sounds good. Pass it on to the board.
All right, and over our time period, at least, we've not been dissatisfied at all with the FP.
They do a good job of knowing who we are and knowing what we've done. We had a discussion about the different audits that we have had over the time period, and just about in the past 5 years, just about every major topic they have been able to give us a report on, and it was very, they've been very thorough.
Which we'll get at in the next one, right? But for this one, thank you for that update. All in favor? 7-0, so specifically what they've given us most recently is the internal audit risk assessment, so I need a motion to, is that approve, accept, or whatever it is we're doing? Accepts the audit. Maureen, second. Joyce? Questions about that? It came in, I think, fairly standard, some of our turnover being the biggest issue, but we will deal with that as any organization does, right? So, all in favor? 7-0. School-sponsored field trips. This is, right, for this, still this current year, right, and over the summer. So motion to approve those. Kevin, second. Maureen? All in favor? Oh, you have a question? I'm sorry, I didn't say it.
Just a question, because I thought our policy was that students don't have to pay for things for the field trips in general. But for some students, for the Wendy's end of the year celebration, the students did have to pay for their field trips? Or pay for the? Okay.
So they don't have to pay for the field trip,
Mm-hmm.
but only lunch, and it's a very small group of students, and the teacher is very deeply acquainted with them. Would not be proposing this if it was a problem.
Okay. And so we make accommodations if someone is not able
If
to.
there's a problem, I would expect this teacher to work with them. It's a very, very small group.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, sorry about that. Thanks. All in favor? 7-0. Okay. Board comments, any, before we have executive session? I will just comment myself in terms of what's potentially going to happen in our executive session. For those who may want to hang around, we won't give any time frame as to when we'll come out, but depending on where the conversation leads us, we may have a motion or need to have a motion to amend the agenda so that we can then vote on a related issue. I think it does depend on where that conversation takes us, though, whether we'll do that or not. But so that's a possibility for those who may want to hang around for that. But before going into executive session, this is a time for any other comments. I mean, it's still exciting week, graduation. Look forward to seeing everybody there. But other than that, congratulations to another great school year, and hope everybody enjoys their summer.
I think one question I did have for Brett or somebody, that there was legislation this month in New York State to approve the new APP, you know what I'm talking about, right?
APPR,
And whether did it change significantly? I mean, there was some verbiage around test scores and the impact on teacher ratings and.
So at this juncture, there is some wiggle room, I guess, a way to say that, given to districts in terms of how to craft the performance portion of the APPR, but continues to be a performance section on the APPR. We're now waiting for the Board of Regents to give us guidance around that in terms of the SLO that will be required to create. Could we create an all-encompassing district-wide, or do we have, so all of those rules around it are not in there.
Okay. So it seems like we just reestablished the way we evaluate or give our teachers.
Being tied to your APPR, those slow scores.
Right.
Yes.
So are we potentially going to have to go back and rewrite that, or?
We will, pending the regulations that come out, we may need to make some slight adjustments, but the current APPR is a composite of two sections, right? The observation and the performance. There was just some latitude given in terms of the performance and specifically relative to the 3 through 8 testing. And so how the Board of Regents manages that and deals with that and the rules of engagement that they're going to give us around that will determine whether or not we need to make some adjustments. I expect we will, but there will still be two sections. There will still be a classroom observation component and a student performance component.
Okay. And then the combination thereof
Just the
does give
composite.
us a certain degree of control.
It does.
Yep. Okay.
It does.
Thanks. Anybody else? Okay, then I need a motion to enter into executive session. Damon, second. Kevin? All in favor? 7-0. Okay. That was at